I want to introduce Dan Mirgon, and I've known Dan for a few years now. One thing that I love is just his immense amount of knowledge that he has in leadership development, the jobs that he has owned and sold. He just has just an amazing track record with leaders and coaching leaders and to work with. And one of the other things that he does is he has a strength to help this. And I lost it. I'm going to hold on just a second. Let me grab so I say it correctly.
I need you to be able to tell me so I remember, Lisa. Come
yeah,
on.
I know, right? It is. I had this done and sat down with Dan, and it's called the TTI Success Insights. It's Talent Insight for Management Skills. And I mean, it totally blew my mind on just learning the different skill sets for myself and how I can incorporate that in my business. And so I am so excited. Dan's been married for 40 years. Him and his wife, Sue, have 2 adult children, and they just went through this massive home renovation. They bought a home and renovation. And so, it's hard enough that, when everybody's been in quarantine at home, but then to throw in construction on that, it's, you've been over the top with, I'm sure. And then just with family and so forth, you've had some different family things that are going on. So I just appreciate you saying yes, coming on today and just sharing some passion into profits.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's great to be with y'all, and I hope after that intro I can live up to that.
And
yeah.
One of the questions I've asked is just, how did you get into this business?
Holy cow. Started in the restaurant business 40, I don't know, in 1971, whenever that was, how many years ago. Turns into an investment management, benefits, financial planning business in Orange County, Southern California. We get a call in 1991 to go to the Union Rescue Mission, the largest rescue mission on the West Coast, to set up their foundation. So I had my investment business and my charitable giving job. That turns into a consulting business where I'm flying all over the country, teaching small organizations, basically organizational development and leadership. It was all around fundraising, but funding is generally the symptom of the disease and the need for leadership, right? So I did that for 25 years. We get a phone call. My daughter had married, moved out here to Southern California. We were in Southern California. She moved out here to Utah. And the phone call was, hey, Dad, you're going to be a grandpa. So it took my wife about 10 minutes to figure out how long it would take to get out of town. Sold off the investment business, brought the consulting and coaching out here. And really kind of probably another way to look at it is retired and then figured out that retirement is not all it's cracked up to be. And you got to do something because I was too young at that point to sit around and eat bonbons and play golf all day. As fun as that is. But I really look back over the 40 or so years of starting 4 companies and coaching and leading and consulting with a bunch of hundreds of others. And it all got down to leaders. It's all about how do you help a leader who has either a huge problem that they can't get rid of or an opportunity they can't accomplish. And so for the last 10 years or so, it's been a focus on the small business leader who has started the ball rolling, got some momentum, have some success. But I kind of think of that as we got from A to B. Now, how are we going to get to C, D, and E, right? And it's at that point when they're past the first year, they're into the 5-year window, and they've got still a 50% chance of not making it, that people reach out and say, I just need to think about stuff. I need to have somebody to help me ask myself the right questions. And so that's generally what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the one thing I thought learning is that there's also another word for leadership as well, and that is confidence, and because, I was struggling with a couple things, and I was told that is my leadership. I need leadership skills. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean, right? And not only to lead other people, but to lead yourself. I mean, to step out. And I that didn't click to me, I guess. We always talk about leadership, and it's always kind of like, well, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to, be leading this team. And sometimes the leader is not necessarily the boss. I mean, sometimes that leader can be somebody within the group that has influence. So how do you become, that's a big question, but how do you become a good leader?
How many days do we have to cover that?
Exactly.
The real issue, John Maxwell, probably the most prolific author on leadership in the world, says that leadership is influence. And I tend to agree with that. It's about the idea of knowing intrinsically that people do things for their reasons. And the only way I'm going to get them to do what I want them to do is to want what I want. Have them want what I want. And I can't do that if I don't know who they are, what they care about, what they're afraid of. So if we're talking about an employee in a company, how do I lead that person? In general, I think it begins with an understanding that when a person takes a job, they're asking three questions of them, well, like me and of themselves, subconsciously. They're not asking this out loud. The first one is, are you here to help me? Help me do what? Well, my daughter needs braces. My kids need college. I have to pay the mortgage. How are you going to help me accomplish the things my family needs by my working with you? The second question is, are you going to get to know me as a person?
Yeah.
Am I just, employee number 47 on the master cog in your org chart? Or do you care that Dan has an aunt in San Mateo who's got Alzheimer's and he has to go every month and go make sure her bills are paid? I mean, that kind of stuff. And then finally, the third question, and probably the most impactful and important, is can I trust you as an individual? Mm-hmm. Is your character the kind of person I want to hang around with, that I want to admire, that I want to support? If the answer is no to any of those, you have a short-term person, they're not going to stick around, and you've influenced them out of your company because you didn't steward your own obligation as a leader to get to know your people and build a healthy company.
Nice. Yeah.
So how do you create that culture? You and I talked about this, Lisa, and some of the folks on the call have heard me say this. I get the call all the time that says, hey, I need you to help me fix or I need you to fix my middle manager, right? Okay. Who hired him? Well, I did. Who gave them their job spec? I did. Who holds them accountable? HR. No. You are the one where the buck stops. You are the one that has to be what I call a humble servant warrior as the leader of that organization. To lead with enough backbone and heart so that people see the vision from you, align to that vision, and want to help you execute it, because everybody wins when we all do that. Now, that sounds really good, right? Hard to do. Far too often, we get stuck in this mentality of, well, this is what a business person's supposed to do. And they got that from their parents or their business book or their course in college. I had a doctor one time and he's evaluating my thyroid. And he goes, oh, I just love the class I took on thyroid in college. I mean, I never went back to that idiot, right?
Yeah.
You have to be a student of the game you're in. And if you're going to be influencing people to accomplish a goal, you're the first one that runs into the battle. You're the first one that says, hey, follow me. And you got to make sure that you've got followers or you're really not a leader. You can't do that if you don't know your people.
Yeah. So very true. Well, and so with that being said, I mean, with this last year of COVID and that, what have you found on the people that you've been working with on the challenges? Because now it's, you know, them being home and meetings are, you know, virtual and.
The concept of trust has been huge this year. More so, I think, for the leader who perceives maybe incorrectly that people don't want to work from home and they're going to flake off and, you know, whatever. I think just getting that leader to stay in enough relationship with their people to first be aware that trust had to be rebuilt after March 15th or whenever it was, to say, okay, I used to trust that you would come in every day and do your thing, and now I have to trust that you're logging in every day and doing your thing.
Yeah.
So it was a learning curve for a lot of leaders. It was a learning curve for a lot of employees because they had to figure out it was a higher level of self-accountability, I think, this year. And so that's you know, we're coming out of that.
I see my light.
Pardon me?
No, I think somebody's on. Hold on.
Yeah. So it's been difficult because there's too many businesses impacted by the shutdowns and the insecurity and uncertainty of what's going on. But those that are fighting through are starting to find ways to build trust, to be able to keep the communication going, to celebrate the little wins so that everybody feels like they're still part of that team. And that's the leader's job, is to make sure that everybody, hey man, good job. Well, it's a little thing. Great. You could have not done it, right? And just keep people moving forward. That's their job.
Yeah, I think of, you know, I mean, we've all had, you know, those leaders, you know, bosses, if you will, managers and so forth. And I think of those that, you know, those that have always had to have that micromanagement. This has been the year of that's a blow up because you cannot, you know, it doesn't work to micromanage when it's virtual. And so
but they try.
Yeah.
Micromanaging, you know, I can say this now because I don't necessarily want everybody as a client, right? I'm going to be selective. But micromanaging, in my experience, is generally a symptom of an insecure person.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think we all know that, right? So if we're going to lead from the middle and we are working under a micromanager, I think it's incumbent on us to determine what it is that drives that manager up a wall and keep them from getting to that wall if we can. It's not sucking up. It's not trying to make, you know, pandering to the boss. It's sometimes the manager, the real influencer is the janitor or the receptionist or the worker bee on the assembly line who perceives a problem and comes up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all heard the Teddy Roosevelt aphorism that says, if you're going to complain and not bring a solution, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So people ask, how do I learn to lead in the middle? Look around, solve a problem. Do it with humility, but go solve a problem and people will take notice. And
absolutely.
You can take some of that stress off the leader.
So coming to that, one of the things on that is that, so you introduced me to Talent Insights.
Mhm.
And what brought you there? What brought you to that?
It's part of my, well, in our executive coaching, working with small organizational leaders, it's part of the first phase. We have a proven three-step process that we use with people. And the first one is assess. Now, our coaching, I think I kind of hesitate to even use the word coaching sometimes, because it really is about consulting and facilitating things, and coaching is a blend. I don't just sit there and ask 400 questions and have you go off and contemplate a solution someday. We have to actually set some goals that are measurable and build an ROI, a return on investment, against the investment that you're going to make in the solution. So the assessment phase starts with understanding your goal and your problem. It then gets to baseline your personality. In other words, we've probably all had Myers-Briggs at some point. We've always, we've done the color code, we've done this or that. But our lives change and how we respond to things change. And so the Talent Insights model gives us the ability to look at how we respond to things and what motivates that response, and then blends it together. And tell us what you thought your results were as we went through that, Lisa.
It was amazing. The one thing that I came across was, let me grab a couple of them. The one thing I loved about it is that you have your natural style on here, and then you have your adaptive. And so share a little bit about one of the things that said that I bring value to organizations is I'm consistent and steady. And always looking for the logical solution, good at reconciling factions in calming and abiding stability, and builds good relationships. And so I think that, those that, I love relationship. So I love, connecting with people and that, and intuitive, and I'm a good listener. So it's like, I think some of that was confirming what I knew. But one thing I loved about was that you do have a little bit of a natural and an adaptive. So what does it mean by natural and adaptive?
Thank you. That's a good question. This year, I think the whole year has been adaptive, right? Think of it as pre-COVID lifestyle and with the anarchy going on. No, your natural style is when you're not under stress. In a normal day-to-day, and you're going along, how do you normally respond to things that normally motivate you to respond that way? And then when we see how stress influences that, it ultimately speaks to emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And the idea that you may not be aware of the fact that you may be flying off the handle and blowing people up because you're getting stressed out. This will kind of point to some of that. But it's part of that overall assessment phase when we help a client get started. I want to put their need, their goal, into a quantifiable number that we can metric out that say, we're making progress, it's going to be X times your investment in your return on investment, or we tend not to go forward. But part of that is baselining the personality, understanding the goals, investing the time it takes to really say, okay, let's develop then a strategy, phase 2, for how you would solve this. How can we help you with our resources? What do you have? What's missing? How do we get those resources headed towards solving that one big challenge you need? And then we stick with the client through the implementation phase to make sure that, I guess the best way to think about that is most of us can only think about one thing at a time for any length of time. And 90 days seems to be the limit for most people. Mm-hmm. So if you tell me you want to do this, but you're over here doing this, my role in that relationship is to say, okay, did this now become less important than this, or what are we doing over here? and kind of help somebody stay on track. Because if you can't follow through with your own dream or your own challenge, what makes you think people are going to follow you with bigger challenges, right?
So true.
So the assessment helps us understand how we respond in conjunction with goals, a clear understanding of what the risk financially, personally, professionally is, and then building a metric to be able to go out and say, how are we doing this week? How are we doing this month? How's it headed for the quarter? Are we going to hit, or do we need to do some fine tuning?
Yeah. Well, and one thing I love is that, and it's so true on this, it said, Lisa does not enjoy confrontation for confrontation's sakes. She feels she can win through patience and resolve. And that's one thing I've learned, that when we go into the adaptive style, if you will, I tend to stand back and watch things. And so it's interesting that I'll meet people and they'll say, well, you know, you intimidated me, or so-and-so says that you intimidate them. I'm like, well, I don't understand that. I don't know what that means, you know? And I think part of it might be just my own style if I step back and assess before I move forward to it. So people may read things that you think are completely different than what they're seeing, I guess.
Yeah, it's really difficult in a 100-person company to get to know everybody on a one-on-one level that kind of pins down their personality and lets you stay out of potholes, right? But with your leadership team, let's suppose you had that 100-employee company, you've got a core of leaders around you. You need to know their styles. You need to know what motivates them, because if you do that, you then are actually speaking their language, and communication's getting more accurate, efficient, on point. And you have to teach your team how to do the same thing. So your example of when there's stress or there's adaptive, it tends to be more about, I need to really, if I'm the one that sits back and people are thinking I'm being aloof or whatever, I need to find out more about their personality and their motivation. And then I can speak to it in a way that doesn't keep us distant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I like it because my daughter, she works for the Air Force, and one of her bosses, and that they have the struggle, and I think a lot of it is personality, right? So, I mean, how do you deal with those people, you know, like if it's your leader or that it's your boss, if you will, or even, I guess, with clients too, where, you know, it's like, okay, we're either not connecting, or there's a friction or something.
Well, I think you go back to the Dale Carnegie 101 stuff, and you say, can I have a minute? Lisa, we just had this interaction in the last meeting, and I don't know about you, but it felt tense. Can we talk about that? Because I don't want it to happen again, and get permission. And if you say yes, then you replay without the blood what that difficulty was, and you try to understand from, I would then say, Lisa, you said this, I heard it this way. Is that how you meant it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a different way for us to understand that? And you'll go, oh no, I meant this. Okay. So what we're talking about here, Lisa, is we have different ways of communicating, and I want to learn more about how you communicate. And I'm going to ask you to do the same with me. And you might give them some resources. You might even do a team talent insights structure so that everybody has sort of a roadmap. That's an option. And then we can blend all of those together into one to say, as a group, this is what you do, and this is where your shortcomings are, and here's what you need to hire for next, right? But it would be really helpful in that kind of a situation to be able to say, all right, if I'm the CEO that sits in my office at the end of the day when the lights are out, And I'm in the boat with 67% of the other CEOs in the world going, I don't know if I can figure this out. Might be helpful to say, all right, I've got Lisa and Boyd and Stephanie and Rachel and Ann, and I got all these people that report to me. I better understand that each one of them's different. Each one of them's got their way of communicating. And each one of them has their needs. And it's my job to not give them everything they're asking for, but to have enough communication interaction that works so that I can get what we need for the vision for the company. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's just one aspect of a healthy company. I mean, we've talked, and I think most of the folks on the call have heard the idea that a healthy company, you know, it gets a lot of press these days. There's a lot of people talking about, hey, you need a healthy company, great culture. That's great. What is it? Right? Well, the best way to understand this probably comes out of Patrick Lencioni's material, his latest book. It was the next to latest, The Advantage. The idea that you've got a smart side of the business. It's where you need the Anns and the Boyds and all the technical stuff over here for marketing and tax and sales and all those things. That's important stuff. But most companies spend 90% of their time over there in the healthy, in that smart side, to the exclusion of the healthy side, which is about people. And how do we build a culture where morale is high and turnover is low? Shared vision is the main goal. It's not either or, it's both and. You've got to have both. And when you do that, all of a sudden your turnover goes down. And if you think about that from a just purely financial perspective, turnover costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Turnover is drastically expensive. Now, to understand the cost of replacing an employee, you need to understand that their performance decline is the first area that you can actually notice and start seeing that you're losing money right there. Now, let me give you an example. We'll call him Wally, is on the production line, and he's supposed to produce 100 every month of whatever it is you make, okay? And then you take those 100 and you turn them into sales and infrastructure and payroll and profit. But when Wally's production starts going down, and now he's producing 90 and 80 and 75, aren't you losing money right there?
Yeah.
But people don't start counting the cost of the loss until Wally's gone. Do the math, and it's bloody. Number two, Wally is actually telling Fred and Sally that this place sucks and I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's hurting the morale on the production line. So how do you quantify that?
Yeah.
You need to be doing what I call stay interviews. I didn't design it, somebody else came up with this, but the idea is to sit down with a Wally once in a while when you start seeing this dip. And it's not a performance review, it's not a corrective, it's a, hey brother, what's going on?
Yeah.
Is there something in your life? Is there some challenge that you're having? Are you getting what you need from us as a company? And listen, because you may just be able to have Wally get his production back up and keep from losing. But once you determine that Wally's not going to be rehabbed and he's gone either voluntarily or involuntarily, then you've got the HR cost and you've got all the retraining costs, and it's going to be a long time before Wally's replacement, Wally 2.0, is up to speed and producing those 100 again, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and I love like what you say, you know, having a check-in and just listening. One thing I think is that we're not taught how to be leaders. I mean, first of all, we're not taught how to do business, right?
Well, yeah, let's speak to that, because when we go from preschool through kindergarten, through elementary, junior high, college, what's the purpose of that phase of our life? It's to make us like everybody else. We know this much, and you fit in this box because everybody else knows this much. And to a certain extent, then we're then supposed to take that knowledge and apply it to productivity and performance and build a family and save for retirement, to the other end, the third phase, where we get to do what we want ultimately, right? The problem is that first phase kind of weans out the creativity and innovation and courage. And now we've got a college degree, or we're at an age where it's time to start being an adult, and nobody teaches us how to be a leader. So we look around for examples.
Yeah.
And we see the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko. Hey, I want to be that. Or I see my friends believing that Mark Cuban's going to call and put them on Shark Tank and get their widgets sold, right? Doesn't happen. 99.99% of the people who start a business don't ever get that phone call. And 52% of them are gone in 5 years. Why? Because they didn't plan well, didn't have a good product? No. Because the hardest space on the planet to manage is between your ears.
Yeah.
And if you don't have somebody who can actually ask you the right questions, you're likely to end up with the wrong results. So whether it's me or somebody else, you've got to have, I guess, the internal comfort with the fact that you don't know it all, and you may actually have to go ask for some advice or opinion.
Well, and I love, I mean, during the years and so forth, it used to be, I think that, well, over the years it's morphed, I guess, should be, that for coaching and consulting and so forth as well. And I'll just dive in a little bit on here, is that people would find, well, okay, I went through this situation, and so now I can be a coach. I went through, I had the, I went through a divorce, so now I can do relationship coaching. And so you have all of these different coaches popping up, if you will. And I think that's why you kind of may have made mention that you use that word coach, if you will. But we also know that it would be a pretty lousy team if you had a baseball team that didn't have a coach, that everybody was just kind of, deciding what they wanted to do. They're teaching skills, but those coaches also were taught how to, they didn't just say, I think I'll be a coach and teach a baseball team.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a valid point, one that I'm generally reluctant to bring up on my own, because there's more coaches on the corners than there are Starbucks.
Yes.
And some of them are really great. Yeah, don't anybody hear me say they're not. Some of these people have value, but you're right. Not everybody's an expert. Not everybody's got life experience. Not everybody's got a resume. Okay. So my focus is on organizational strategy through the ears and heart and hands of the leader. Mm-hmm. And you don't get that experience out of a book.
Yeah.
So you got to read the books. You got to know what everybody's thinking. You got to understand the formula. But I've started 4 companies over 45 years. I've had some really good successes and some really great learning opportunities. Can I say it that way? Okay. So there's a difference between a coach and a consultant and a mentor that we probably ought to speak to real quick. A coach is there to help you think your thoughts and stay true to your thoughts, by and large, okay? A consultant comes in with concept, resource, and maybe helps you do it. And a mentor says, I did this, so if you do that, you will get my kind of results.
Mm.
I don't do a lot of mentoring. We do a lot of consulting, a lot of facilitating to help people kind of work their thing out in their company. And then we do coaching. So yeah, I'm a little hesitant to say, hey, I are a coach. But hey, I am a coach and everything else, right?
Yeah. Well, and one thing I'd like too is that, one thing I'd love is that when you and I talked on that, and we had a conversation of ideal clients, if you will, and is really understanding, like, for me, my ideal client is those startups. Those that are that's got that idea or that's just getting started, that, like we've said throughout the day, is that you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times you don't know what questions to ask yourself, if you will.
Right.
Learning to create the basics. And, but when they start building, and they've got that, those employees and maybe, 30, employees or and so forth, or different things. They're not my client. That's when that even if they've got maybe even 10 or more clients or 10 or more employees, they're not necessarily my client. And it's so good to know that I've got somebody that I trust, that, that I know the integrity that you have, that I can refer to.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm looking at this from the other side for me as well, in that, can I help an individual start a company? Sure. It's not the preferred sweet spot for me. Capable, yes. Interested, not really. I'd rather give them to you and let you get them up and running correctly and get the team on board to help them have what it takes. My focus really has to do with how do we get, okay, you got from A to B. What about C, D, and E? How are we going to get there? And who do you need to be to make that happen within the realm of the people that you've been blessed with who work with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So for us, it really is about understanding what a healthy company is. It's a lot. I mean, was it Coach John Wooden used to say, if you don't have time to do it right, what makes you think you'll have time to go back and do it over?
Yeah.
Right. So for the starter, the guy, the person who is actually starting a brand new company, the more of these principles they understand, the fewer mistakes they're going to waste money on. Okay. And when it's lean, wasting money is a big problem. Let's not do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love, one thing that I love too is that the knowledge that you have, and the different strategies and the different programs. If you could go back, when talking with these first businesses that are actually even in startup mode, if you could go back and talk to yourself when you started your businesses, what is one of those tips that you wish you would have known before you started them?
Well, it probably wouldn't have been 4 companies. It would have been 1.
Oh.
No, that's not accurate. I think sometimes you go through phases and you figure out, hey, this was good for now, but I'm done with it. I want to move on and do something different, which is kind of what we did. But just because you're watching somebody else have success in a particular area or in a business model doesn't mean you're going to. There's no guarantee that if I do what that guy did, that I get his results. Everybody's different. I think to be more responsive to your question, if I had been more open as a young guy to the idea that I have different personality types around me, instead of trying to make them fit my mold, I probably would have gotten places faster than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's valuable. Number two, leaders are readers. And it doesn't mean that you have to own and agree with everything that you read, but you have to stay current with what the current thinking is. Not so much, like I said, to adapt and be morphing all the time, but to be able to say, you know what, I understand where you're going. I understand how it might even be attractive, but I'm sticking with this for these reasons, and know your reasons.
Yeah.
Not just don't follow trends because it's trendy. That's probably the short list of.
So share with us, you've got a special gift that you're offering. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
On our website, mirgonconsulting.com, right under the picture of my smiling face, is a free download of what we call a healthy company checklist. Now, who should take it? Why is it important? Yeah. A healthy company can be a person who has the husband and wife or the partners. You still need to be healthy. You still need to have a good understanding. But there's 20 questions in there, and it asks you to grade yourself. It's not a turn it in for a grade kind of thing. It's not going to show up on the internet unless you put it there. But it goes through pretty much the fundamental questions about what a healthy company should have. It allows you to grade yourself, and you can take the test, print it off, save it, take it every year if you want. But at the end of the day, it points to the areas where you might need to do some study or get some support or have a conversation. Okay? So you go to mirgonconsulting.com, MIRGON, click on it. I'm going to ask you for your email and permission to send you our newsletter. If you don't like the newsletter, you still got the thing once you opt out, right? That's it. I don't sell the list. Nobody else gets it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people who are thinking about doing a business or got a business up and running and it's sputtering a little bit, we go through that together and they go, oh. So it kind of brings you back in from the, oh, there's all these ideas I have to follow through. It'll kind of help you put a net around that and calm you down. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And tell them a little bit, so you also have available that they can go in and take this assessment as well, this
right.
The Talent Insights. So just share a little bit about that.
Talent Insights is about a 15-minute online move the right answer to the right column kind of assessment. But it's very impactful in helping you understand, like I said, how you behave and why you behave. Hello? Oh, okay. So just drop me an email, Dan Mirgon at mirgonconsulting.com. I'll be glad to get you the link. It's $95. And with that, once you get it, we'll do a Zoom debrief. In other words, I will go through it with you, not as a sales pitch, but as a, here's what your report says about you. How do you feel about that? And kind of walk you through like I did with you, Lisa.
Yeah, it was so powerful. Okay, I know that we've gotten so much, and Dan, again, thank you for taking this time. And did you get your house finished? I'm gonna ask that.
Yes, well, we're still waiting for furniture, you know that, but yeah, we're in and healing up from all the scars. Yeah. Now it's just a different project list. Thank you again for letting me be part of your event today. And we just hope that everybody can get what they need from all these great speakers.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. And again, just the amount of, check out Dan Mirgon's, the free help check for the business. And then if you want that insights, just let him know and he can set you up. It was so powerful for me as well. So again, thank you.